Hey, Rat Riders, Keith Wheeler here, back with another video for you. So yeah, I left you hanging for a second there. Today we're going to talk about the top 5 reasons why your book is not selling or not selling as much as you want it to. So with that, if you're excited, make sure that you give that thumbs up a smashy. Now let's get started. Reason number 1, niche research. Regardless of whether you're doing no content, low content books or written books, it's imperative that you have a niche for your book. So many times I see people and I talk to them and I ask them, what's your book about? Who's your book for? And they say, oh, my book is for everybody. While in theory, yes, we want everybody in the world to read our books. If your book is set up in a niche where it's for everybody, then it's just going to get buried, and which means it's for nobody. If people can't relate to your book, whether it's a journal or a puzzle book or a children's book or a young adult novel or whatever, if they can't relate to it, they're not going to buy it. They're not going to spend their hard-earned money on it. So it is imperative that you find the time to do niche research. In fact, unless you're writing an epic novel, niche research is going to be one of the most in-depth parts of your book creation process. And it should be done early on, because the only way to know that your book is on point with your readers is to know it from the beginning. While you're planning your book, even before you plan your book, figure out what niche it's actually for. And I did a video on finding a niche, and I'll put a link to that up above. While you're doing that, you want to make sure that the niche that you've chosen is actually a profitable niche, meaning there's not a lot of competition, which nowadays is kind of hard to find one that has no competition, but as little competition as possible. But just as important, and sometimes more important, is, does it have hungry readers? Based on the BSR, the bestseller rank of the books that are ranking for that niche, are they good BSRs? Because, I mean, you may find a niche that has, 10, 20 competitors, but if the number one in that niche is ranked 1 million, then that means they're not selling very often. And so your time might be better served doing something else, working on a different niche. Reason number 2 why your book may not be selling is your book cover. I know we've all talked about this, and you've probably heard it 100 times ad nauseum. And I know when we're kids, we're taught, don't judge a book by its cover. But the truth is, people do. Not just with books, but with many things. They judge things on their looks, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. That's what happens. So you need to make sure that your cover is on point. Just to be clear, there are different elements within that. I'm not just talking about, is it a good cover? You could have a good cover, but does your cover point out the niche? Does it fit in with the niche that you've chosen? For example, if you're doing a book in military science fiction, well, you could have the best cover in the world, but it better have a space in the background. It better have a battleship somewhere, and either that battleship needs to be in battle, so you're showing like lasers shooting out, or you need to have some futuristic looking Marine or somebody on the cover to show that it is for that particular niche. Otherwise, people are just going to zoom right by it. 90% of the time, people are shopping right here with our little handy dandy phones. So your cover needs to look good at a thumbnail size, not just on the laptop where it's a little bit bigger, but on a small phone. And not everybody's got the newest and biggest phones out there. You need to make sure that it stands out, that it belongs in that niche at that small thumbnail size. Now, I've talked about this in other videos too, but what I like to do is I like to take my cover once I've got a rough idea of it, or maybe even almost final, and I like to shrink it down, and then I pull up Amazon on my laptop or whatever I'm using. I go into my niche and I take that picture, that thumbnail that I've done, and I put it next to the other books that are there. Does it stand out in a good way? Does it fit in and yet still stand out? Reason number 3 that your book may not be selling as well as you want it to be is the interior. Now, I don't care if you're doing written books or no content and low content books. Your interior is something that cannot be underestimated as far as the importance of it. Obviously, if you're doing written books, you want to make sure that it's edited and formatted correctly. But even if you're doing no content, low content books, the same thing is true. The number of times I've seen journals that have very little words in them, and yet those few words that are in there are spelt wrong, is ridiculous, or it's formatted oddly. It doesn't look right. It's not aesthetically pleasing. Now you may be saying, Keith, but I've got my look inside feature set up so that way they really don't see my interior. They just see my title page and that's it. And then the front cover and the back cover. You think you've got it, things worked out for you, but not really, because even if I can't see the interior of your book, when I look at the look inside feature, I still have access to the content. And how do I have access to the content if it's not in the look inside feature? I have it down in your reviews. People that spend their money on your book, if that interior is hot garbage, they will tell you. You may not see a lot of good positive reviews, but when someone's got something bad to say, they're definitely going to put a review. They're going to take their sweet time and do it. That is one way to make sure that, one, if you've got a lot of low reviews, you're not going to get a lot of sales. But also, like I said, people read those reviews. They want that social proof. And so when they read that and they see that this book is riddled with typos and grammatically incorrect and it's formatted weird, all those things are things that, even though they didn't see your interior, your potential buyer is going to know. So I cannot stress enough how important it is to spend time on your interior, regardless of what type of book you're doing. Now, if you are not good at formatting, or you are not good at editing or grammar, that's fine. Not everybody is strong in every suit. I'm certainly not. But then you find someone who is. Fiverr's got some great gigs for fairly inexpensive prices. Just make sure you do your due diligence and you look at the people and you vet them out and don't just pick one at random. So again, interior is super important. Now, the fourth reason why your book may not be selling as well as you wanted to is something that I'm actually kind of grouping a bunch of things together, and I'm calling it metadata. And that is your title, your subtitle, your author name, and even your price point. Now, there are other aspects of your metadata that I'm not including here, but these are the main ones that I wanted to focus on. Title and subtitle. Your title and subtitle need to make sense for your book. And this especially goes for no content and low content books. We need to stop with the keyword smashing, the keyword stuffing, whatever you want to call it. The days of that working those are gone. I mean, that was like 2014, 2015. Now, in the recording of this, it's 2022. Aesthetically, that does not look good. It looks like hot garbage. And when people see a book, now, don't get me wrong, you very well might be showing for those keywords that you've got stuffed in there. But if it just looks off, they're not going to buy it. Also, one thing to know about the Amazon algorithm, the one other reason why it's not working as much as it used to is because the algorithm is always changing. And so one thing that is really higher up when it comes to what books get shown is relevancy. And so if people type in a keyword and your book pops up and it's like 150 characters for a title or a subtitle, and they don't click on it, the next time someone types in that exact same keyword phrase, your book is going to show up lower, because apparently, according to the algorithm, based on what happened with the other person who didn't buy it, that keyword phrase isn't as relevant to your book. It's okay to put keywords in your title and subtitle if it makes sense. But the days of putting a puzzle book for kids 6 to 8, those days are gone. People don't like seeing that. It just looks wrong. And so again, title, subtitle, make sure it makes sense. It's not keyword stuffed. Make sure that it's titled properly, like capitalization wise. So many times I see people, they just capitalize the first word and then everything else is lowercase. In titles and subtitles, typically you want to capitalize the first letter of every word, except for words like of and the and in. Again, you also want to make sure that those words are spelled correctly. I know that seems obvious, but the number of times I've seen books that are not, it's bad times. Now I know, yes, you may do keyword research and you see that the spelling of it incorrectly is very popular. Great, save that for your keyword slots, not in your title and your subtitle. Title and subtitle should be capitalized properly, make sense as far as the words that are there, and they should be spelled properly. The same thing goes for your author name. Your author name should be spelled properly. I know there are people out there who try to do, who do pen names that have keywords in them. And if you're going to do that, again, first of all, be very careful with the keywords that you use. And second of all, it has to make sense. Amazon and KDP in particular do not like keyword stuffing in the author name. So if you are going to put keywords in there, make sure that they make sense and it doesn't just look like it's in there in an odd way, or it will most likely get flagged. And then of course you got the price point. So many people, try to put their books at bottom, rock bottom prices. And Amazon buyers typically are not the type that are looking for rock bottom prices. They're looking for fair prices, but not dirt cheap. And there's actually studies out there that show that if you put your book at a lower price, like at the lowest price possible, people end up thinking that the quality is less, even though it's the exact same quality book as if you'd priced it at $9.99. What you need to do is look at the other top 10, 20 books in that niche. Remember, niche is important, and see what their price points are. You want to check at the BSR, make sure that those top books are selling, which if you already did your niche research, then you know that the top books should be selling, and see what price point they're doing and see what their page count is. And then figure out what kind of price point would be comparable for your book, depending on your page count. You don't want to be the most expensive. You don't want to be the cheapest. You want to be somewhere in the middle. And the fifth reason why your book may not be selling is your book description. So many times people use their book description as kind of like a place to summarize their story. And while, yes, you can do that in there, that's usually saved for the back of the book blurb. If you're going to do that, there's some important things that you need to know if you're going to do that inside your book description. Your book description is more than anything else is your sales page. It is your book's last chance to sell itself. That's what that book description is for. Now, if you can write your story synopsis in such a way that makes people want to buy it and click that buy now button, then by all means, put it in the book description. But the important thing is that every line in that book description should do one of two things. It should either make them want to read the next line, or more importantly, make them want to click that buy now button. That's it. That's the job of your book description. Now, whether you do that by, again, sharing the synopsis of your story, or you do it by putting in important information that's going to make them intrigued and want to buy that book. And again, whether this is a written book or if it's a no content, low content book, doesn't matter. Your book description is meant to do the same thing, regardless of what niche you're in. It's meant to sell your book. And one thing that absolutely is imperative when it comes to book description is your first line should be short. I would say 6 words or less, bold, and then you put that up there. It should be catchy, something that again gets them to either buy now right then or gets them to keep reading on. That's it. That's their job. So you got that first line, then you put a carriage return in there, so you've got a little space, and then you go with the rest of your book description, and you should end your book description with, again, in bold, short, sweet call to action, or what's called a CTA, which is a big fancy word for telling them scroll up and click buy now today. Grab your copy today, something along those lines. Again, your book description is your sales page, and your sales page job is to sell your book. Every single line should get them to either want to read the next line or click buy now. That's simple. Now you may be saying, Keith, but that's 5. What about keywords? Now I know we talked a little bit about keywords before, but I didn't put keywords as the top 5 because while yes, keywords are important, keywords are ways to get your book more visible on the marketplace, whether it's Amazon or elsewhere. The thing is if you have the best keywords in the world, if those 5 things that we covered, if those are off, yeah, your book is showing up for that particular keyword phrase, but people aren't seeing it because the other 5 things are wrong. While keywords are important, it's more like the icing, not the cake. Keep that in mind. And keywords are things that you can always tweak and every 90 days change. But those other things that we talked about, those top 5 things that we discussed, the niche, the cover, the interior, your metadata, and your book description, those are the 5 most important things to help you sell more books. Now, since we are on the topic of selling more books, I wanted to give you a deeper dive into some of the things I talked about in this video. So I dug back into the vault and I pulled up this video right here where I did 2 Amazon book sales page reviews. So you can see some of the things I talked about in action. Now, if you've already seen that video, well, then YouTube said this one is right for you. So I'll catch you in one of these videos. And remember to write right.